You wake up every day telling yourself the same lie. I'm just lazy. I don't have discipline. Maybe I'm just not built for this. But what if I told you you're not lazy at all? What if the real reason you can't move forward is because you're terrified of what happens when you actually try? There was a young man named Arjun, 23 years old, smart enough, capable enough, but every morning felt the same. He'd set his alarm for 5 a.m., hit snooze until 8. He'd promise himself he'd start today, but by evening he hadn't moved an inch. His notebook was full of plans, his mind was full of dreams, but his days? Empty. People called him lazy, even he believed it. I'm just not motivated, he'd say. I'll start next week, he'd promise. But deep inside, there was something else, something he couldn't name. A feeling, a weight, a voice that whispered every time he tried to move forward. What if you fail? What if you're not good enough? What if you try and discover you were never meant for this? So he stayed still, because staying still felt safer than finding out the truth. One night, Arjun sat alone in his room. The walls felt smaller than usual, the silence heavier. He scrolled through his phone, watching others succeed, watching others move, and something broke inside him. He threw his phone across the bed. Why can't I just do something? He shouted at himself. But there was no answer, just the echo of his own voice. He stared at his hands, strong hands, young hands, hands that had done nothing. And then he cried, not because he was weak, but because he finally felt it, the truth he'd been avoiding for years. He wasn't lazy, he was scared. Scared of starting and not finishing, scared of trying and still failing, scared that even his best wouldn't be enough. So he chose nothing, because nothing felt safer than disappointment. The next morning, something strange happened. Arjun's father knocked on his door. He didn't say much, he never did. He just handed Arjun an old, worn-out journal. "This was mine," his father said quietly, "when I was your age." Arjun opened it. Page after page, unfinished goals, broken promises, dreams written in faded ink. And then, on the last page, his father had written years later, "I wasn't lazy, I was afraid, and fear made me nothing." Arjun looked up. His eyes were calm but heavy with years of regret. "I waited my whole life for the perfect moment," his father said, "but the perfect moment never came. And now I'm old, and I wonder, who could I have become?" He placed his hand on Arjun's shoulder. "Don't wait to find out if you're good enough. Start and become." Then he left, and Arjun sat there, holding that journal, feeling the weight of wasted years that weren't even his, but could easily become his. That moment changed everything. Not because Arjun suddenly had motivation, but because he finally understood. He wasn't avoiding work, he was avoiding himself. The version of himself that might fail, the version that might not be special, but also the version that actually might succeed. And that terrified him even more. Because if he succeeded, he'd have no more excuses. He'd have to keep going, keep building, keep becoming. And that felt like more responsibility than staying small. But now, sitting there with his father's journal in his hands, he realized something else. Staying small wasn't safe. It was slow death. Every day he didn't try, he lost a piece of himself. Not to failure, but to fear. So he made a decision. Not to be perfect, not to be fearless, but to move. Even if his hands shook, even if his heart screamed, "Stop!" He opened his laptop, started that project he'd been avoiding for months. The first sentence was terrible. His hands were sweating, but he didn't stop. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't running from who he could become. He was walking towards him. Here's the truth most people never realize. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're not lacking discipline. You're afraid. Afraid of your own potential, afraid of responsibility, afraid that if you really try, you might have to face the person you've been hiding from. But that person, the one you're scared of becoming, that's the real you. The one buried under excuses, under comfort, under tomorrow. And every day you wait, that person fades a little more. Laziness is just fear wearing a mask, and the moment you rip that mask off, everything changes. You don't need to be fearless, you just need to move. One step, one word, one attempt. Not because you're ready, but because waiting won't make you ready. Action does. Arjun didn't become successful overnight. Some days were hard, some days he wanted to quit, but he never called himself lazy again, because he knew the truth now. He wasn't afraid of failure. He was afraid of his own greatness. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. So let me ask you, what are you really afraid of? Is it failure? Or is it the person you'd have to become if you actually tried? If this story touched something in you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more stories that wake you up.